Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, finally coming with the trade back scenario mock draft. This is the second of the 5 mock drafts I'm gonna do. The first one a while ago was the one I did through a draft simulation, so it was relatively realistic based on what the big boys looked like back then. This is the second one, the trade back scenario. The third one will be the trade up scenario. The fourth one will be my dream case scenario, like if guys just impossibly fall beyond where they're supposed to go. So that's going to be like the least realistic one, but it'll give a great idea of exactly who I like the most in the draft and things like that. It's not going to be Justin Fields or JOK, Micah Parsons, Devonta Smith in the 4th round and stuff. It's not going to be that unrealistic, but you know what I'm saying? It's going to be just, this will be perfect right here type of thing. And then the 5th and final one will be the most realistic one, because that's going to be me challenging myself to see how many I get right. And it's going to be completely based off of who they've met with, who is reported that we're interested in, and like what are our biggest needs, and all of that will be calculated and included in my picks. And most importantly is who they're interested in, who they've met with virtually, and all of that type of stuff. So that's going to be the 5th and final one, maybe like a week or 2 before the actual draft happens. So be on the lookout for some more mock drafts. I have to come out with 5 before the draft happens, so stay tuned for all of that. But without further ado, man, let's go ahead and get to this trade back scenario. Let's get it. Alright, so first of all, I went back to 2018. It took me till 2018 to find a trade back scenario that has actually happened very similar to what our situation is, because the Seahawks had the 18th overall pick in 2018, but they traded back to 27 with the Packers. Since we have the 19th, I have us trading back to 28. So I felt like that was as close to realistic as possible, and the picks are very similar. The picks are very similar and equal to value to what the Seahawks and Packers did back in 2018. So we would give up our 19th overall pick in the 1st round and our 247th overall pick in the 7th round for the Saints 1st round pick, 28th overall, the Saints 2nd round pick, 60th overall, Saints 4th round pick, 134th, and the Saints 6th round pick, 218th. Now, as many of y'all know, I'm team trade up for a quarterback all the way. But I did want to experiment with the trade back scenario because honestly, even though I'm team trade up for a quarterback, I wouldn't be flipping tables with this mock draft scenario. If we had this exact draft and we're able to get these exact players, I'm like, we'll figure quarterback out later. I love Heineke, but I mean, I'm pretty sure none of y'all would bet y'all life savings or put any real money down on the fact that he will stay healthy for a full 16 games. So love Heineke, but still feel like we need a quarterback of the future at least. But either way, you know what I'm saying? With this mock draft, hey man, we'll just figure out quarterback next year if it's just got to be that. Alright, so round 1, 28th overall, I have us getting cornerback Jaycee Horn out of South Carolina. The only reason that a lot of people forget that he even exists is because he sustained a pretty serious injury during the season last season in 2020. But Caleb Farley, Patrick Surtain are normally the 2 that people talk about the most. But Jaycee Horn is right behind him, and you could argue he may be better in some ways, because I project him to be a starting lockdown outside corner. He's really good in zone coverage, but he makes his bread and butter in man coverage. And my favorite part about him is his attitude. I mean, he has the biggest alpha dog, talking trash, I'ma shut you down today and there's nothing you can do about it type of personality, attitude, grit, competitive edge that like really nobody else has in this draft out of the cornerback group. I mean, again, Patrick Surtain and Caleb Farley are great, but they don't come with this, I'm gonna be the biggest trash talker on the field and I'm gonna let my play show it also, that Jaycee Horn comes with. And I love that. I mean, he can become one of the big spirits of the defense. I already know we have Chase Young. Jonathan Allen's a leader. I think Cameron Curl honestly may step up and be somewhat of a leader. Deron Payne. We have leaders already out there, and Chase Young's basically like our Brian Dawkins, our Ray Lewis. I feel like Jaycee Horn will fall right behind them in second as far as being like the spirit of the defense, the spirit of the team. He brings that much competitive edge and attitude. He doesn't care even if it's a mismatch. He's playing as if like, I'm the best guy on this field, I'm locking you down. He has that type of personality where he's not going to be afraid of Julio, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, anybody. I mean, he's going to go toe-to-toe with Terry in practice if we take him. He's going to be the type that's like, hey man, y'all move out the way. I'm covering Terry in practice. If Ron Rivera and Jabril let him, of course. But that's what he's going to want to do. He's going to be the one that wants to lock up Terry McLaurin in practice, or at least try to. That's the type of competitive edge he comes with. And I love that. I love that fiery spirit. Then round 2, 51st overall, with our first of 2 second-round picks, because we got one from the Saints. I have us taking linebacker Jabril Cox. Love him. Loved him coming out of NDSU last season. Hope we can get him in the draft back then. But he transferred to LSU, and then he went and got a pick 6 his first game for LSU. So I was like, oh my Lord, he going in the first round. It's over with. The cat's out the bag. Everybody knows about him now. We're not getting him. But for some odd reason, draft analysts do feel like he still may make it to the second round. And I really hope he does. Because if we don't take linebacker in the first and Jabril Cox is sitting there in the second, we're taking him. I'm almost sure about it. He's too talented. One of our biggest weaknesses on our team is will linebacker. That's literally one of our biggest weaknesses. I feel like we really need a true rangy free safety. I hope we get Trey Boston for that. We really need a wide receiver too. And along with all of that, I mean, you can even argue that will linebacker is a bigger need. And Jabril Cox is the best will linebacker in this draft. And I love Micah Parsons. I love JOK, Zaven Collins. There's a lot of linebackers out there that are great and maybe better than Jabril Cox overall, maybe. They may be like, especially at Mike and stuff like that. But like will, just pure will linebacker. Like think Corey Littleton, but with a higher ceiling. Like I'm very shocked that a lot of people still feel like he may make it to the second round. Really hope he does. He was a big sleeper last draft. I mean, there was even a chance that because he played for NDSU, he may make it to like the 5th, 6th, maybe even 7th round. But again, the cat's out the bag now. Played on the big screen at LSU, transferring to the SEC. So I already knew getting him in the 5th round or later was impossible. I mean, the day I found out he transferred, I already knew that dream was out the window. But hopefully he will not go in the first round. And again, draft analysts have him possibly even making it to the 3rd. I don't think he will, honestly. But man, I think we may have a chance to get him in the 2nd, and he would fill in perfectly. We can groom Cole Holcomb to be our Mike linebacker. He has some things he has to work on, of course, but we can groom him to become that. Kevin Pierre-Louis can be a decent Sam. I would still prefer to try to get somebody in free agency like a Gerard Davis with the really high ceiling he has. I mean, he was literally being compared to Bobby Wagner coming out of the draft. It was just all based on potential. He didn't really have a high floor, as we've seen where he struggled in Detroit. So I would love to bring somebody like him in free agency. But like Jabril Cox is our starting will linebacker to basically do what we were hoping Reuben Foster could do. Basically just Reuben Foster without the hard hitting. And that's one of my favorite parts of Reuben Foster's game while he was 100% himself. So that is like but Jabril Cox is still a good tackler, but he just doesn't bring that dominant generational linebacker type talent that Reuben Foster brings. But for exactly what we need at a will linebacker, he can do it all. He's one of the best coverage linebackers, not only in this draft, but arguably in a few drafts. I mean, you can put him up there against a lot of guys comparing coverages out of linebackers, and he's right up there. Not just freak athlete, not just crazy sideline to sideline speed, but like intelligence too. Like he just knows how to fill zones, fill where receivers are, and look at the quarterback's eyes and make plays. I would be ecstatic to get him in the 2nd round. You may see him pop up in all of my mock drafts because I'm just really pushing for us to get him. All right, with our second round pick, 60th overall, I have us taking guard Quinn Meinerz from Wisconsin Whitewater. And this is another guy where it's like the cat's out the bag. Right now on the draft network, if you look him up, they don't even have him on there. Like he's not even in the 300s. Like he's like just unknown, undrafted guy right now. But I mean, after that pro day he had where he showed his athleticism, the way he balled out at the Senior Bowl and dominated defensive linemen, the cat's out the bag. And I plan on doing a whole video on him, but it just got backed up because of all these other videos I've been having to make this week and all of the live streams and all the stuff I've just been doing even outside of YouTube this week. So I will be working on that video where I'm just basically breaking down what his skill set is, weaknesses, strengths, and all of that. And I'm gonna even show y'all clips from the Senior Bowl and stuff like that. So I'm gonna do a whole video on him. But just to summarize it up, bruh, crazy potential to groom. Extremely high ceiling with a good enough floor to where he could probably step in and start over Wes Schweitzer day one, maybe. Wouldn't bet on it, But potential-wise, he definitely has the athleticism and just the natural gifts and strength to be a Pro Bowl left guard, period. And once you can refine his technique, because again, he's really raw. I mean, he played for Wisconsin Whitewater. Of course, they just didn't have the best coaching. They didn't have his technique up to par. Once you get that right, bro, he's going to be a menace. I think it was even Daniel Jeremiah that tweeted, like, Quinn is not making it out of the second round. If you want him, you got to go get him in the second. He's still one of those guys that's unknown to a lot of people. So it was hope that he may go as an undrafted free agent, but it's done now. He's going in the second. We have to take him in the second if we want him. And like I keep saying, if we can find a way to get an upgrade over Wes Schweitzer, and Wes Schweitzer becomes the backup guard for this team, that's crazy depth. Because Wes Schweitzer as a backup is arguably the best backup guard in the NFL. And a solid starting left guard. So you can get Quinn and have Wes Schweitzer off the bench to step in, like with the occasional Brandon Sheriff injuries. Our interior offensive line is dominant, period. Then moving on to round 3. 74th overall, take safety Hamsah Nasirildeen. I've already taken him in mock drafts before, but I'm pushing this issue. Safety out of Florida State, man. Limitless potential and versatility. Just think basically Derwin James, but less like a linebacker, more like a free safety. You can put him in the slot. He can play in the box. Strong safety, outside corner even if you need him to sometimes, because he can even man cover. But I feel like his greatest gift is his just elite athleticism. He's going to be one of the best athletes out of this entire draft, regardless of position. And I feel like him playing free safety would be the best use of his skill set. But again, we've seen how much Jack Del Rio loves versatile guys that can play multiple positions. And if you can groom Hamsah Nasirildeen behind maybe like hopefully if we sign a Trey Boston free agency, that's perfect. Because I feel like he may not be ready to play year one and get like real meaningful snaps because he just has technique and IQ things he needs to work through. But the freakish athleticism is there. Again, think Derwin James, but instead of less like a linebacker and strong safety, think more free safety corner. But it's that same type of just apex athlete type of thing. Testing in the 90-something percentiles in pretty much every way. Then with our second, third round pick, 83rd overall, I have us taking Tommy Tremble from Notre Dame. And his untapped potential and athleticism is just, you have to take the chance on him. I don't know why Notre Dame did not use him more. Shouts out to the Podfather too, because he did an excellent job of breaking them down. Definitely check out the Podfather because he words it so well. I'm just doing a quick summary. So if you want to know specifically, go to the Burgundy Zone on YouTube, and it's the tag team featuring Street Scores Rico video. And towards the end, each of us four break down a prospect that we feel like is just not getting enough recognition. And he broke down Tommy Tremble very well. And I agree with a lot of his points as to Tommy Tremble is just ridiculous untapped potential and athleticism. First of all, let's start with the fact that the Burgundy and Gold have met with them multiple times virtually these past couple of months. So there's heavy interest there. So this is a very realistic option too. And I think he could be the ideal tight end too for us. He can definitely be groomed into it, especially if we don't end up getting like a Jonnu Smith or a Hunter Henry. I think he would be an excellent tight end too, with the potential to actually dethrone Logan Thomas and make Logan Thomas the tight end two and take over as tight end one, because the potential is there. He's a freak athlete, good hands, but you just didn't see him much. And it's just hard to project exactly how good he's going to be at the NFL level when Notre Dame just didn't use him much. But when they did, he just looked like one of the better athletes out there on the field. He can separate, he can catch, he knows how to use his body to box out linebackers and DBs. I mean, he's a mismatch nightmare for linebackers and corners. He's too fast for the linebackers, he's too big for the corners and safeties. I mean, it's just not fair. And then he doubles as a pretty decent inline blocker. He's not great, not George Kittle, but it's good enough. I think he's going to be a way better blocker than Vernon Davis and Jordan Reed, which were a lot of our problem because they would just pure receiving tight ends. They couldn't block to save their lives. Jeremy Sprinkle is just a pure blocking tight end, can't catch to save his life. Tommy Tremble brings even more athleticism and more potential greatness at being a receiving tight end than Logan Thomas. And he may not be as good of a blocker as Logan Thomas, but it's not to say he's a bad one. And I think he can hold his own. He's not just going to be out here moving top edge rushers in the NFL off the line, but he holds his own. It's good enough to where we can run the ball his way. We remember with Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis, we weren't running the ball the direction, and if we did, we already knew the play was done. We already knew the running back was getting taken down in the backfield. You can run the ball Tommy Tremble's way while he's an inline tight end. And then he loves to block linebackers and DBs. I mean, he goes up there and punishes them and runs them over. So, good enough blocker. Not great, good enough. Could potentially come better with better technique. but all of the athletic traits are there. Then round 4, pick 125th overall, wide receiver Elijah Moore from Ole Miss. And Ron Rivera has already emphasized that we are definitely getting speed at the receiver position this offseason, whether it be through free agency and draft. I feel like we may even do both just in case. But Elijah Moore, I think, is going to be exactly who we wanted Steven Sims to be. Basically who Steven Sims looked like he was going to be at the end of the 2019 season. Super speed, ridiculous separator in college. He's an even better route runner than Steven Sims has ever been. I like Steven Sims' route running, but Elijah Moore is already a pretty good route runner, for real. But the reason he would make it this far is because his hands aren't great. I mean, it's not even like he drops a lot of passes. He just tends to bobble it. Like, he has to catch the ball twice sometimes, and that can be a little worrisome at the NFL level because he may not have that extra second to hurry up and corral the ball. He may already be getting hit or something like that. So if he can work on his hands, that may skyrocket him to getting taken into like the second or maybe even first round, because all of the speed, all of the separation is there. All of the big playability, give him the ball out of the backfield, watch him go 80 yards to the house. All of that is there, but we just need to work on his hands. And he's not a good blocker. He can't block really at all. So he's just one of those guys, don't run it his way. But if you want to manufacture his touches, basically what we hope Steven Sims would be for us last year, that's exactly what Elijah Moore brings. Then with our second 4th round pick, 134th overall, you know I had to include a guy from Georgia. It was just no way we were going this whole draft without a Georgia guy, especially in a trade back scenario where we accumulate more picks. I got to take my boy Tyson Campbell, cornerback out of Georgia. Freak athlete, the groom. Has everything you need physical. I mean, length, height, speed, acceleration. I mean, he's literally going to be one of the more athletic guys on the field any given play. And that's our biggest problem, because I love Kendall Fuller and Ronald Darby, but their biggest weaknesses is that they just go against wide receivers that are more athletic than them. They get beat deep. Sometimes receivers gain separation over them. They are able to do contested catches on them, box them out. You won't be able to do that with Tyson Campbell if he's groomed correctly. The reason he would make it this far in the draft is just because everything, technique, decision making, all of that needs to be worked on. And it's crazy because he's like the fastest guy on the field any given play when he played for us in Georgia. But somehow he would just still get beat. You see it on the field, but his mental processing is just slow enough to where guys way less athletic than him seem more athletic than him by beating him and getting open. So once you can get his mental processing up, once you can get his technique, everything refined, you potentially have a number 1 lockdown corner, honestly. But again, that's why you're taking a risk on him in the 4th round. He is a project. Round 5, 164th overall, I have us taking quarterback Kellen Mond, Texas A&M. Knows how to read the field very well and comes from an offense that loves for their quarterbacks to work through progressions. So he can definitely do that at the NFL level. I mean, he's out here throwing to his 3rd and 4th reads often. Like, he knows how to read the field. He knows how to move safeties with his eyes. Look this way, get the safety to go that way, throw it that way. I mean, he knows how to do all of that advanced eye stuff. So that's down. And then, I mean, he played in the SEC. So he went against some of the best defenses in the country. And then, like, he drops dimes and has weird, inconsistent misses all within the same game. I mean, you'll look at one game, he drops a perfect dime, one of the better throws you've seen all season out of any of the college quarterbacks coming out of this draft. And in that same game, it'll just be some ridiculous underthrow or something, and it's just like, what happened? So I'm thinking it's just going to be technique. Once you improve his technique, he can be pretty solid, honestly. Also, another thing that I really like him, just regardless of position, especially quarterback, is that he improved every season. I mean, you saw his eyes get better, his decision making get better, and even his accuracy. I mean, his accuracy isn't great right now, but you see progress year to year, and so that only helps me be more optimistic of the fact that when he gets to the NFL level, he will continue to improve. That's big for me, regardless of position, but especially quarterback. But also his biggest weakness, I would say, is his arm strength and deep ball accuracy. And it's weird because, like, it's hard to say arm strength because he puts a good zip on the ball short and medium range. But for some reason, when he throws it deep, it just seems like the ball dies at a certain point, and then he's just not really accurate deep. His deep ball just isn't accurate. He's pretty accurate short and medium range, and you can definitely work with that. And then, I don't know what happens long range, because it's weird. He puts a zip on the ball. I mean, it gets there so fast, short and medium range, but for some reason at a certain distance, the ball just dies out. I don't know what it is. It's so weird, because normally people who can't throw deep, their short and medium range passes don't have as much zip to them as Kellen Mond do. So it's a little weird. Maybe, again, that may be a technique thing. Also, he has some pretty decent athleticism. It's definitely more than Mac Jones. It's not Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, or Trevor Lawrence mobility, but is definitely better than a Mac Jones, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe he tests well and proves to be more athletic than those 4 guys I just mentioned, but I know for a fact it's better than like Mac Jones and Kyle Trask. He's somewhere in the middle. I just don't think he's Lance Wilson, Fields, or Lawrence. Then in the 6th round, 218th overall, I have us taking offensive tackle Josh Ball from Marshall. And I mean, to put it simply, from everywhere I've looked, you know, I did my own film study on him, but I also like to research guys to see like how's everybody else feel? What did they take from it? And I personally think he is one of those guys that has a high ceiling, but I saw somewhere that he was being compared to All-Pro Andrew Whitworth as far as comp. If you can work with them, get him groomed up, developed, work on his power, work on his hands. His IQ is pretty straight already, but he definitely needs some improvements in that area. He has functional IQ, but of course you want better than what he possesses currently. But I saw a comparison to Andrew Whitworth from a trustworthy source, and again, I'm not that high on him, but if you can get somebody out of round 6 that's even possibly being thought of as an Andrew Whitworth comp, you take it, period. I mean, that's my whole evaluation right there. Round 7, 245th overall, I have us taking linebacker Justin Hillard from Ohio State. And I think with Kevin Pierre-Louis not, you know, being a lock at starting at Sam linebacker, I like Kevin Pierre-Louis. I like his potential. He may grow and become even better than what we saw last year, but it's not like he's just this guy where we're like, oh yeah, he's starting at Sam linebacker for us next year and beyond. Like, we know that for sure. He's got that on lock. Now, so I would love to bring in a guy like Justin Hillard who comped to be an ideal Sam linebacker. He has a lot of things to work on, but at the very least, he's a special teams ace. So you at least bring him in. And I see us potentially not bringing back Troy Apke, who's also a special teams ace. And Justin Hillard could take his spot on the roster for that special teams. And then we could also be working on grooming him to potentially become a really good Sam linebacker, at least a good depth piece at linebacker. That would just be smart to replace Troy, because Troy Apke, I don't see him coming back, and we're gonna need to replace his impact on special teams. But we've already seen him at free safety is not gonna work, so I don't think they're gonna bring him back unless he's just willing to go for some veteran minimum, and even then he may not even make it out of training camp and make the actual 53-man roster. So I feel like Justin Hillard is a good guy to bring in for a potential grooming and development into a Sam linebacker role, and at the very least, day one, really good special teams guy. But yeah, man, that's the end of this mock draft, man. I really appreciate the view. This is the trade back scenario. Had a lot of fun. I love this draft class. Again, I feel like priority number 1 is trading up for a quarterback, but even if we don't, this draft class right here solves a lot of our problems. And I mean, if we can pull this draft class off, I feel like people would give us A+ across the board, and we would arguably have the best draft out of the entire NFL. I mean, this draft is crazy. I mean, again, we wouldn't necessarily solve the QB position. We would see what Kellen Mond, if he could be groomed into one, learning behind like a Taylor Heineke. But I mean, I just wouldn't feel like, oh yeah, we're set at QB for the next 10 years. Like, I just wouldn't have that feeling. But everywhere else, I feel like we're hitting home runs on a lot of these picks. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please like this video if you liked it. If you learned anything, please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification every time I release a mock draft like this one, every time I release an informative video, every time I release a live stream, a film session, all of that. And of course, man, definitely get in the comment section and let me know how y'all feel about this mock draft. Which players do you like and why? Which players do you not like and why? And as always, man, I really appreciate all the support, man. Everybody that gives to the channel in any way that you can, even if it's just by pulling up to every video and live stream and liking it, encouraging others to like it, sharing it out for other people to join the Street Scores family. We hit 8K. Now we're on our way to 9K, man. I really appreciate all of y'all. And of course, man, I appreciate all of my sponsors, everybody that donates to the channel in any way, and all of my sponsors you see on the screen right now, whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now, my Pro Bowl sponsors. Big special shouts out to them. Again, I appreciate all of y'all. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.